Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Zeta and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys 5 questions that I think you should ask before applying to PhD programs. If you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Zeta and I recently graduated with my biochemistry bachelor's degree and am about to start a PhD in immunology and microbiology. When I was applying to PhD programs, I spent a lot of time reflecting on if a PhD is really worth it to me, and there were a lot of questions that I had to ask myself before I actually applied. So here are 5 questions that I considered and that I think you should heavily consider before applying to PhD programs. The first question is, does your dream career actually require a PhD? There are many different careers in science, and a lot of them do not need a PhD. Contrary to popular belief, a lot of people believe that you need to just go to as much school as possible and that is how you get the job that you want. But that is just not true. There are plenty of laboratory scientists who work in labs who just have a bachelor's or a master's degree, and you really only need a PhD if you're interested in research. For example, speaking from my experience, I knew that I wanted to get a PhD because I want to become a professor and I want to do laboratory research. And so if you want to have a research position, especially as a tenured faculty, then you're going to need to get a PhD. I've also considered industry, which a lot of industry positions, you can actually begin straight out with your bachelor's. However, if you want to end up as a research scientist, you will most likely need your PhD. So if I were to go back a year ago today where I was contemplating over the summer about applying to PhD programs, I would list out your dream career and all of the other careers that you would consider and see which ones actually require a PhD, because a lot of them could just require a bachelor's or master's degree. And so you might not want to spend the time on a PhD if it's something that's not going to help you get your end goal. A PhD is not the only path to a career in science. There are so many different careers that do not require a PhD that are still in the science field. The next question that you should ask yourself is, will this have a high return on investment? Now, there are a lot of different factors that will determine if the investment is worth it. But I will touch on a few things. Most STEM PhDs are fully funded, meaning your tuition is covered and they give you a stipend that is based on the cost of living in your area. However, most PhDs take about 3 to 5 years to complete. That is a long time. You may not be thinking of this right now, but the time that it takes for you to get a PhD means that it's time where you are having delayed income, where you would have been working at an entry-level job and working your way up. Now, if you considered my previous question, you would know what career you're looking to go into. And so you would see on average the income that you would make in the end. And so sometimes it is worth it to get the PhD because you make a lot more money in the end. However, sometimes it does not work out that way. Depending on the field you're going into, some PhDs are extremely lucrative, whereas others do not have a very good return on investment. So it's just something that you want to consider, that maybe you'd end up making more money and having more job security just going and getting a job straight out of your bachelor's than you would going and spending that 5 years during a PhD where you would have all that delayed income and living off of a very modest stipend, and maybe it just doesn't work out in the end. And so I would consider, what is the end goal and is the training worth it? And also consider, is the return on investment going to be good for what you want? What it is you want in life, the lifestyle that you want. Is the sacrifice you're going to make now in the short term going to be worth it in the long term in the career that you're trying to go for? All these opportunities are things to consider when thinking about getting a PhD. And that leads me to my third question that you should consider, which is, do you actually enjoy research? Now, a PhD is not just more schooling. It's essentially a research degree. So if we were to zoom out and take a look at our traditional education, if you look at a bachelor's degree, it's kind of a broad education with a mix of electives as well as classes in your major that give you sort of a broad understanding of the field that you majored in. Whereas a master's is a lot more intensive classes where you learn a deeper understanding of whatever your master's is in. Now, if you look at a PhD, the difference there is it's not the traditional classes and exams. Instead, you're doing mostly research. Your goal is to ask questions and design experiments to test those questions and try to find answers in order to expand the field and what we already know about the subject matter that your PhD is in. And so that is very different than the traditional classroom that you're in during your bachelor's. And so it is worth considering, if you do not like research, you most likely will hate getting a PhD. And if you love research, you might love getting a PhD. And if you haven't done any research up until this point, I would heavily consider doing an internship just over the summer in a laboratory where you are working full-time doing research in a lab before applying to a PhD program, because you will learn really quickly if that is something that you like. Because there is a clear difference between working in a lab and following protocols versus actually being on your own, designing experiments and having to come up with this yourself, which is more of a PhD. As someone who loves research, before I applied to PhD programs, I began doing research my freshman year of college, and I did research every single semester while I was in college, as well as I spent 2 summers doing full-time research at my institution. And so I had a lot of experience being in the lab and learned all of the ups and downs that come with it, and still decided to go forth with a PhD because I thought it was worth it. I have many friends who did research and hated it. And so it's good to just go ahead and try it and see if that's something that you like, and definitely you need to do it before you apply for a PhD. You may love science, and you can love science and study science, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you would love and benefit from getting a PhD. Personally, I just believe if you don't enjoy research, I don't think a PhD is worth it. It is a lot of work, it is a lot of time, it is a lot of energy. And so if you don't enjoy the research process, then you probably won't enjoy a PhD. And I just don't think that it's worth it. The next thing that you should consider asking yourself is, why do I want to get a PhD? If you've made it this far and you know that you want to go get a PhD, further ask yourself, why do you want to get that PhD? The reason I question this is because I have seen many students get stuck in the continuous education pipeline. What I mean by that is there are many students who go to a 4-year undergrad right after high school, and then they go on to go get their master's, and then they go on to get their PhD. Now that is amazing, and that is some people's path, and it works out for them. However, if you ask some of those students, why do you want to keep going on with your education? They will tell you that they do not know, and that they are just delaying trying to get a job out in the workforce. And while some people are able to go through with that and it not really affect them, there are many people that go on to get a PhD because they're thinking, I don't know what else to do and I don't want to go get a job, so I'm just going to keep doing education. And they get burnt out and they are unhappy. And that sucks. Don't go do something that's going to make you unhappy. If you do not know what you want to do, don't go sign up to go do a PhD. Do not try to sign yourself up for 5 years of really hard research and really hard work if that is something that doesn't align with you. If that's something that isn't going to benefit you in the end, then it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth your mental health. It's not worth your energy, and it's not worth your time. I would say that you need to take time to yourself and truly figure out, why is it that you want to get a PhD? Because if you don't have a why, then don't waste your time going and getting one. It's not just some pretty degree to hang on your wall. It is time. It is time you can't get back from your life. And so I really press to please consider why you want to get a PhD. And I do believe it's important. And I honestly believe that many people don't ask themselves that enough. Because there are many different careers in science and many different things you can do that are all the things you love that maybe don't require that. And maybe it a PhD just doesn't align with you. And I know that I keep saying that, but I really do think that that's important, because you should go get a PhD because you truly want to, and you believe that the training is something that you desire and will help you reach your goals in the end. I just believe a PhD should be intentional. It should intentionally help you and train you to go into a career that you really want. And if not, then try to find something else. Find something else that makes you happy. Life is too short to just be going through the motions and doing something because you think you have to. You don't have to go into a PhD just because it seems like the traditional pipeline for a lot of science students, because there are many different things you can do. So go explore other options. I also strongly encourage you to think of a why, because there are probably going to be moments in your PhD where you are going to want to bang your head against a wall. And there are times where you're going to have to ask yourself, why did I sign up for this? And you need to remember your why. Why is what keeps you grounded. It keeps you focused. It keeps you consistent. And so with that in mind, I would heavily consider writing down a bunch of reasons why you want to get your PhD. Or maybe it's just one reason, and that's good enough. As long as you have a strong reason why you want to do something, it will help you push through any time when times are tough. And that brings me to my final question that I think you should consider, and that is, what kind of life do you want to live during your PhD? And now, honestly, I don't think this question gets talked about as much as it should, but you should really heavily consider the type of lifestyle that you want during your PhD. The reason you should consider the lifestyle you want to live is because while most STEM PhDs are fully funded, the funding is a very modest stipend. And that is perfectly okay. However, I tell you this because you may need to be realistic and consider the fact that you may need to have a modest lifestyle in order to live within your means while on a PhD stipend. Now, for me, that is perfectly okay because I think it is such a blessing that I am able to go get my PhD and not have to work, considering I worked full-time all throughout undergrad. And so I am just happy that I am able to actually focus on what I care about and focus on getting my PhD and my research without having to have a secondary job. And I also think you should consider the lifestyle you want because that also determines what kind of PhD programs you apply to. You may not want to apply to programs that have a really extremely high cost of living in the area, for example, like California or New York City, because the stipends may be a lot harder to live off of compared to the price of that area. And honestly, it's not even just about the money. You need to consider what kind of lifestyle you want because you need to be thinking, do you want to actually spend the time and energy that it will take to get your PhD for the next 3 to 5 years? Truly sit down and think about the life you plan to live out for the next 3 to 5 years. Is a PhD gonna come into conflict with the day-to-day life that you truly want to live out? Now, you don't have to have all the answers, and you probably won't know what you want your day-to-day life to look like to a T, but you do need to consider, is the time and energy worth it getting a PhD? And does the day-to-day life of a PhD student seem to be a day-to-day life that I want to live out for the next 3 to 5 years? And so for me, when I considered all these questions, I knew that I should apply to PhD programs because ultimately all of these things led to me feeling like I was aligned with the path of getting a PhD. And so that is why I encourage you to sit down, journal a bit, and ask these questions to yourself so that you can really see, does a PhD really align with me before I apply to PhD programs? And that is it for this video. Now, my goal for this video was not to try to persuade you to get a PhD or to not get a PhD. At the end of the day, I just hope that this video helps you with your decision-making process and help you to decide, is a PhD worth it and the right thing for me? And if there's one thing that you should take away from this video, it's that a PhD is an incredible opportunity, but it's not for everyone. And it's also not the only path to a successful career in science. The goal is not to collect degrees, it's to actually build a successful life with a career that you want. And a PhD may possibly be a tool to help you get there. And so take the time to ask yourself these hard questions and really understand if a PhD is worth it to you. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and stay curious.